Hi, Jules. Thanks, mate. Welcome to the Saddle Hill Community Board meeting for our first meeting for 2022. Pretty exciting that we're able to catch up on Zoom. So welcome to all our board members, and I'm sure Keith will join us as soon as he can. I'll just, there's no public forum at this time. Keith's joined us, otherwise I was going to pass an apology for him for lateness, but no apologies there. I'll move confirmation for this agenda. Is somebody happy to second it? Thank you, Christina. Just a reminder in regards to declarations of interest, if anything comes up that we need to just flag for discussion or that you need to sit back from, just let us know prior to that discussion. I'll move that. Is somebody happy to second that? Thank you, Paul. I'll move confirmation of the Saddle Hill Community Board minutes for the 18th of November. Is anyone happy to second that? Thank you, Councillor Jules. Just in regards to that, I sent Rosie Davison a message just the other day in regards to how did her leadership opportunity go at the Spirit Adventure, and she's hopefully going to join us at the next meeting in the end of March just to give us a bit of an update on how that went. She's got a slideshow and things that she wants to share with us, so it's exciting. So Part A report, school bus service. Firstly, thank you very much to Leanne for a huge amount of work that Leanne's been doing behind the scenes for the community board, with the community board, with the Targa Regional Council, with the Ministry of Education, but working alongside Julian along the way. Just before we offer Julian the opportunity to update us where we're at, Leanne, do you want to talk to this report at all first?
No, I don't think so, Scott. I think probably it's been pretty well covered, but yeah, probably Julian's got it.
Great, thanks. So welcome Julian Phillips from Targa Regional Council to give us a general overview of, I guess, where we're at and where we're going. I don't think we need to rehash too much about where we've been in the last wee while, but where we are now and where we're going, if that's all right, Julian.
Yeah, hi everyone. Yeah, firstly, I'd also like to say thank you to Leanne, because we, similar to you guys, found out about some changes to how school services were operating in December and started talking to, well, approached by a few schools. But the feedback we've got from Saddle Hill Community Board has been really useful, and there's been a lot of it, and it's been collated. So, which has actually taken a lot of work off us. You know, we're not having to trawl through loads of, you know, Facebook comments and on various different websites and all that sort of stuff. So it's been really helpful getting that information through, and pretty much almost every other day, some contact on different tweaks and issues and that sort of thing. Probably easiest if I just sort of tell you where we are now. Most will be aware, but not everyone necessarily aware of where we've got to. And maybe I can take any questions and or learn about stuff that might be coming up that I'm not aware of, or other things you'd like to look at. So we're basically trying to modify our existing services to cater for what seems to be a growing number of school children who are relying on the public transport network to get to school, either all the way to school or part of the way to school. And a lot of that to date has been concentrated around the Saddle Hill, Taree, Mosgiel, Green Island, that sort of southern area where the impact of Targa road services closing down around Christmas time seems to have been most keenly felt. So in terms of what we've done to date, we have modified our service that goes from Brighton to Green Island to extend to Kaikoura Valley College twice per day, one obviously morning and after school. That was actually after an approach from Kaikoura Valley School just before Christmas. That's working very well. Buses about half full at the moment at both trips. and numbers are slowly climbing on that as word gets around. Secondly, we modified an existing bus route we had operating from Kings and Queens to Green Island. A lot of the feedback we got around Christmas time, especially in January, and there was a lot of feedback, was that a lot of school children were trying to get to Kings and Queens schools from almost using Green Island as a connector point, or coming down from Mosgiel and other areas as well in Brighton. So we had an existing service that goes from Kings and Queens to Corstorphine and Lookout Point, and we extended that. So that service goes from Green Island straight to Kings and Queens. It was going at 8:25 in the morning. A ton of feedback that it was too late. We moved that to 8 o'clock recently. Feedback by one or two items, which I can talk about later, has been very good on that. Initially, what we found when we ran that service was that within a couple of days, it was oversubscribed, even with taking into account standing room as well. So we are running overflow buses on that service as well, which is 2 buses instead of 1. If the buses get full up, effectively running 2 buses a day in each direction. And last count, I think last Friday, if I look at the afternoon service, you're getting something like 75, 80 odd kids across 2 buses using that service. So that's been a really popular one for Kings and Queens. At the same time, we've also got a lot of kids using either Brighton or especially the Mosgiel service via Green Island to get into the city to do for other schools, and which might involve them changing in the bus hub or changing to a different service elsewhere. And that, combined with people coming to Green Island to get on the new school services, has meant the sort of normal public bus is being oversubscribed. So we put duplicate buses on in the mornings initially, and then to take capacity off. So 2 of the key timing points in the morning, I don't have the times in front of me, around sort of 7:30 and 8 o'clock-ish. Instead of having 1 bus turn up, you have 2. They're filling up as well, but we've got a bit of capacity left there. And recently we found, again, primarily due to a large number of school children using the service coming from the city out to Green Island, that the afternoon service has been filling up as well. So we're running, by the time the bus gets to Dowling Street, which is only a couple of stops after the bus hub, it's full. So we are running additional overflow buses, so 2 buses at a time, again, in the afternoon. And they're pretty busy, and patronage is increasing on those. But at the moment, there's capacity. So we've done those. We've just had a provisional approval for another service that Leanne will be aware of. So briefly discussed it over text yesterday, but I'm still working on the operational side of it. We had some feedback that we need a connection, possible directly to Kings and Queens, Balmacewen, and possibly even St Hilda's as well. And also that we need some connections from Concord. So we're looking at running a bus service from Green Island around 8 in the morning. Have 1 stop in Concord. It will go along Carrick Valley Road, past the intersection with just past Bowl Line where KFC is and so on. At that point, kids can hop off and get on a bus that drops into the door of Balmac just before 8:45, and the bus carries on from there. We'll go to the Targa boys bus stops next to the school. There's one outside Moana Pool, one on the other side of the road by the sports grounds, and then potentially also extend to St Hilda's as well. So as I said, we've got a provisional approval to operate that. I'm just working on the operational side of things to get that in place as well. But we continue to hear there are some teething issues elsewhere, both in the communities that you represent and also in completely different areas. The route that goes from Palmerston via Waitati to town, the Peninsula, Port Chalmers, Logan Park. So yeah, the issues we've felt have been very acute in the broad area that I outlined earlier, which is why we've been dealing with primarily that area surrounding the Green Island area and radius outside of there. And we've done what we can today, bearing in mind vehicle availability, driver availability, cost and everything else to get some solutions in place. Uptake has been great, but we're open to seeing where we can help elsewhere. We're looking at another thing. It actually just landed on my desk this morning. The Targa College, was up there the other day, and although they have 4 or 5 ministry buses sitting outside the front that take people to various places, they also use the school bus that I think leaves at 3:05, and it's full with standing room only and leaves about 20 kids behind. So again, looking at running another duplicate bus there. The majority of kids actually get off at Green Island and go elsewhere. Either people are picking them up from Green Island, or they're going towards Brighton or other areas. So it's a sort of ever-moving feast, and there's lots of stuff going on, all the time. And we are doing our best to react to something that's, for us as well, has been relatively short notice. So we're trying to fill the gaps wherever we can. Actually, next month we've got a council meeting related to school services, and I'll be updating council on the way things are going and gaps and potential solutions, and generally where we may need to go in the future. Because I guess my last point is what you guys might not know is that since around 2014, we no longer run school services. We have a few services that are sort of direct, I think, to Logan Park School, which are on older contracts from 2002 or something, which are expiring soon. But generally, what we try and do is run our public transport service as close as possible to schools, which is fine, but totally understand it doesn't necessarily help if you're trying to get from, Tarry Mouth to St Hilda's or something. So that's kind of where we are at the moment, and we're trying to react to the feedback that Leanne and others have been providing, and keep in regular contact with the schools, and just see what we can do to help within the resources we have.
That's great. Thanks, Julian. Are you happy to answer any questions from board members?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right. Any questions, board members?
Yes, just one from me. Infrastructure-wise, I missed the very first part of it, but obviously Green Island's becoming a real hub in respect to where people are coming and going. And I mean, we yet to have any decent covered shelters for people that are waiting for quite long periods of time. And there has been previous discussion going back six and a half years about building hubs and shelters and super stops, but we still have yet to have any final plan. Is there anything on the horizon for that, and where or what?
So I believe there is intention to work with the DCC to look at relocating the what we call the super stop, which is basically just a large bus stop from their current location to further down to where the new roundabouts being built, where there's a road reserve with the toilet and so on, down towards Harroways, where there might be more space that isn't directly outside cafe and shops and things, and where some better infrastructure could be put in. In the short term, I've put a request in for, at least on the Memorial Garden side of the road, to put an additional bus shelter alongside the existing one, because you have 30 kids there at any one time, and if it's pouring with rain, as I've been on site last week and stood with a load of kids getting wet, it's not much fun under a single glass shelter. But pending that might be pending whatever the long-term plans are for DCC with that with the location for bus stops in Green Island.
So is the plan is the super stops now? Because I believe that I never, under the plan of the new roading with the roundabouts and crossings and so forth, I didn't see any new plan to move the super stop. We've put a couple of proposals over the years to them for our preferred areas, but I was understanding that where they are now was where they were going to stay. Yeah.
I guess I don't want to speak on behalf of the DCC without certainty. So happy to report back to you with something in writing, but just conscious they're not, well, probably the people I would speak to aren't on the school, so I don't want to get it wrong. But whatever we do, if it's at the existing site or somewhere else, we'll make sure there's adequate infrastructure. But also, we can't just sort of stick a shelter in. I know when we were putting the original shelter in at the Memorial Garden, there was some concerns about, where it's sited and if it was the right location. And at the time, I think there were people sponsoring bricks to put on the wall and that sort of thing, and was concerns about it, the visual effect of the shelters and that sort of thing. But we'd work with the community if we were going to put anything in.
Well, historically, I mean, 6.5 years ago, we all met around the table and had a great vision for stops on either side of the road at that point. But I don't know, the personnel might have just changed too dramatically to even revisit that proposal.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
I've got the fresh choice. So we see it quite a lot, and I encourage kids when it's raining to stand under the shelter of the shop.
Yeah.
Because I know wet kids at school don't work well.
Yeah.
As a parent. But as I say, and it's not shooting the messenger, which you are, but we are 6.5 years down the original discussion.
Yeah.
From that super stop.
Yeah.
And having this on your plate has probably added to it, really.
Yeah. What I'll do is I'll get some like a formal response that I can put to you guys, and then
know where you're at and what your own time frames.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's other things to consider, like I've got a high school kid, well, just started high school, and a primary school kid, and the idea of them attempting to cross the road, given their, I can barely get them to jump out of a car without shooting across the road in front of a truck. There's safe crossing points, and where's safe for, if the majority of people using a particular set of bus stops are kids, there's that sort of safety aspect to look at as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mola. Leanne?
Well, firstly, thanks, Julian. I really appreciate you doing all the work you're doing. I know it's not a hard job, and I'm sure it's a real juggle trying to meet all the requests, etc. But it is very much appreciated. I do share John's concerns with the shelters at Green Island, because there's a hell of a lot of kids going through that hump in Green Island now. The changes that you have made are great. One that I mentioned to you this morning, which I'll just reiterate, is it would be really great to have a better connection for Brighton kids going from Tyree or Town from Green Island to Brighton, because at the moment they're having to wait a good half hour or more on Green Island before they can get a connection to Brighton, because it's great that there's duplicate buses, say from Tyree to Green Island, but that still means they get to Green Island and they've got to wait half an hour. So that would be probably next on my priority list. But I know there's lots of things you need to juggle, but I appreciate you doing.
Yeah, look, happy to look at that and speak to the bus companies and see if that's an option. One of the things, and the reason it's such a juggling act, and I don't pretend to understand everything that goes on with driver scheduling and all this sort of thing, but is the utility of the buses. So what you have is that the buses are effectively constantly in service without much waiting time. So when the bus, for example, from the Kaikoura Valley College comes and drops people off at Green Island, it then, as I understand it, it actually goes straight up to Mosgiel. There's a loop service called Route 80 and 81 that sort of serves a couple of the residential homes and a medical centre, and does a couple of figure of eights in Mosgiel, then comes straight back down and does the Green Island route, and then the bus does something else. So it's about the reason it can take a little bit of time to get these things in place. It's not just the vehicle; it's actually what's all the cogs going on in the background and where drivers are going, all this sort of thing. But yeah, look, it seems like a sensible suggestion, and we'll see what we can do.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
That's okay.
Councillor Jules.
Look, thanks very much, Julian. It's really interesting to hear all that stuff, and to note that you've certainly got your finger on the pulse of what's happening there. And I'm looking forward to our meeting between the DCC and the ORC to discuss the buses and where shelters should be placed and what can we all do to increase usage. So one of the things that occurs to me would be for the DCC, who has active communication with all of these community boards, to be discussing with all community boards about what they want to see from the buses, especially in terms of bus shelters and bus routes, so that when we get to that joint meeting, we can discuss them all. Is there any information that the ORC puts out or has in the way of reports on general bus usage and what the percentages are on various runs and how it's all looking? Because it's very gratifying to hear that some of your runs are oversubscribed, and obviously you're taking up that slack, and 80 school kids waiting for the bus is pretty cool. When you're getting them moved away efficiently.
Yeah, so there are reports on our website in some of the various committee meetings. There's one, I think it's the Data and Information Committee, where my team put together a report on all the patronage and revenue for all the different routes in the city. It's generally broken into groups of routes, which I'll explain why in a minute. But occasionally there's focus on a particular route or a particular service or a school service or whatever. The reason it's focused on groups of routes is we operate under something called, as does the rest of the country, something called PTOM, which is a passenger transport operating model, where contracts are tendered and they're groups of routes. So you have, and they're called units, and we report on each unit. So one unit, which is called Unit 5, contains Mosgiel, Brighton, and the loop services around Mosgiel, and that's that sort of block of contracts. And then the other unit is like St Clair and St Kilda and routes around that area. So the reports look like that, but yeah, there's a lot of Dunedin's unusual compared to the rest of the country in that, and compared to Queenstown, which is the other area we manage, in that COVID has decimated a lot of public transport in terms of patronage elsewhere, where we are pretty much on par in terms of patronage as we were pre-COVID. Part of that will be because we're still in a $2 trial fare period, the flat fare, and probably that's also something I should mention with in terms of the popularity of services, whether it's school or other types of passengers. We've been running a flat fare trial for I think around a year now, or possibly more, and that may be a driver for demand, because previously as an adult it was $4.44, I think, one way to go to Mosgiel, and now it's $4 to go to Mosgiel and come back again afterwards. If you're in Palmerston, it was like $11, $12 to get up there, and that's $2. Or if you're a child, it's $1.20. So whilst this sort of flat fare thing is in place, it does make the cost of, particularly with rising fuel costs as well, the cost of public transport attractive. So I don't know where that will end up. It's something that's been discussed above my pay grade, but just to factor in that fares are particularly in the further flung areas, or can be a driver to the popularity of the services.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks, Jules. And last question, Paul. How you getting on, mate?
Yeah, is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Sorry, Fraser. Yeah. Hi, Julian. Thanks for coming along.
Pleasure.
Seems like you got a power load of work there you've got through. Just one of my questions is, have you approached or thought about East Coast buses, East Coast transport, to help transport the overloaded or the school kids about, so they're not hanging around waiting for so long if number of buses is a problem, and if it affects other routes because you're having to pull buses out? The reason I say that is with Fairfield, we're having school swimming lessons in town at the moment. So Monday didn't work out too well. So we have got East Coast Transport in with the Oceanic Gold buses to transport the kids in and out. So we are on time, things like that. Yeah.
We haven't spoken to them specifically. One potential stumbling block for us is we are effectively, although a lot of these services are running, we're taking 90% of the buses, school kids. They're a public transport service, so anyone can get on that bus that goes to Kaikoura Valley. You don't have to be a school kid. And the buses that we use we're contracted to use or have a set of minimum guidelines set by something called the requirement for urban buses. It's an WKNZTA document. So that would be like lowering, suspension, super low floor, wheelchair access, 3 wheelchairs, and the ticketing equipment and all that sort of stuff to pay. So that can be a stumbling block to long term, but short term, I wouldn't rule out. And we have recently talked to 1 or 2 local providers, inquired about pricing and so on. They weren't one of them, but it's not to say I wouldn't speak to them. So short term, we might consider things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I just mean to get through the teething period and school kids only, like your overloaded buses. So they're just direct to the schools there and back.
Yeah, as I understand it, if you're running a school only service, the standard of bus is different, worse effectively. But yeah, things like that are an option, but I wouldn't commit to anything. I wouldn't commit to anything right now. But those sort of things, if shortages become acute and we can't supply our own buses, but more importantly, if we can get the funding or the approval to do those sort of things, those conversations might happen.
Cool. I just had one question myself, Julian. What's the maximum number of people, students or otherwise, that are allowed to stand in a bus? Just from a health and safety question, I suppose. I see there's a bit of social media interest in that.
Yeah, so it depends on the bus itself, the specific bus. So recently, well, 2 or 3 years ago, we actually switched out a number of buses that run Mosgiel service because there wasn't enough standing space, because that particular bus was only certified, or whatever the regulation is, to hold, say, 7 people standing, and we replaced the whole fleet with Volvo buses, which were bigger, taller, wider, and have, I think it's like 15, 20 standing capacity. So it actually depends on the vehicle. So an overflow bus might arrive and it might actually only have capacity for 4 people standing up, but the main buses have a higher capacity. So, but broadly speaking, very broadly speaking, you might have 43 or 45 seats and maybe 15 standing on a typical bus.
Wow. Do those people get discounted price because they don't have a seat? Do those people who have to stand get discounted tickets?
No. And, it's I guess it's unusual in Dunedin, where until the last couple of years, generally you can more or less get a seat, which is but I'm from London and I'm used to have my face squashed against the window for 4 hours and never be able to get a seat. But it's acceptable to have people standing. The issue may become things where people are traveling a very long distance. I'm looking at Palmerston, for example, to Dunedin, and you have to stand for an hour. It's not particularly desirable, even if it's allowable. So while standing is allowed, and it's a sign of a good popular bus services, as Councillor Radic said earlier, totally understand that particularly the elderly, some of the smaller kids and so on, might not appreciate having to stand. And that's why we run the overflow buses, to try and spread the load between 2 buses.
Cool. Hey, thank you very much, Julian, for taking the time to come and chat to the Hukimi board today, but also the significant amount of work that you've been doing since late last year till now, and then the coming weeks by the sounds of it. Thanks for being so receptive to our feedback, and we'll continue to try and channel that through Leanne to you, rather than every person kind of having their say, if that's all right.
Yep, that'd be great. Thanks very much indeed, everyone.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Julian.
Moving along to the Governance Support Officer's report to Lynn.
I'm happy to take it as read and answer any questions.
I have a question, as you would expect. So item 4, Three Waters update, Brighton Course Waterway. To be fair, and I just briefly spoke to Anna about this the other day, I'm not comfortable that this sits at number 10, when 2 years ago we were told it sits at number 7, and there's been no action taken. We've raised this multiple times in our community board meetings with no real feedback or positive engagement with that department. So I've elevated it to the CEO, in which I emailed 3 days ago. I'm waiting a reply, and I've copied in Anna, and I'll just wait for that reply. So I guess I just want to flag that to the board. We really do need some movement on that. The item called road naming. This email come through a few weeks ago, and I asked the question back to the staff member, what were the significance of these names that they proposed? But the reality is that this report actually has already gone to committee, so we probably have no say on it anyway.
It was only, excuse me, sorry, it was only for you for noting that they were advising you, because it's not in the board area as well. So it was just because it was on the outskirts of the board area.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, board members? Leanne?
Yes, so I'm just looking at the parks and reserves update. I've had some concerns raised by residents in Brains Hill and Mary Reserve. There's graffiti that was put into DCC before Christmas, and it's still there. So, and also the maintenance around Mary Reserve is apparently fairly bad. I haven't had a look personally, but I'm just wondering what we can do to move that forward.
I'll initially answer that, if that's all right, Leanne. So one of the things that I had a conversation with Anna about the other day, and I think we were initiating this at the end of last year, was whether our board can have a workshop conversation with both the Parks and Reserves team, management, and just, I guess, align what our priorities are and what their priorities are, and see if we can't marry those up, and with the transportation as well. So maybe we can flag that as an opportunity to have a conversation there, if that is possible.
It sounds good, because I think it's needed, because I've dealt with concerns with the Martin Reserve in Fairfield as well, and this just seems to be quite a bit slipping through the cracks, so it will be good to sort it out.
Yeah, no, I share that, and I had a conversation with Anna about that as well. Yeah, Keith.
Yeah, sorry, it's really just to find out where the conversation went around community housing as well, because I don't know if people realise, but as of today or tomorrow, everybody that was living in the camping ground at Brighton has to be out tomorrow. We've been able to find accommodation for one of our bowler members in town, but ideally, his life was out here, but there is nowhere for him to go. So he's having, luckily we've found accommodation. I'm aware that one of the other bowling members is considering sleeping in his car. So in terms of that community housing and the commitment I thought we had from council was to, and Jules, you might be able to help, because we were talking about that 10 million fund, and that there was some money going to be allocated within that 10-year plan of developing that area in Brighton and Cole Street. So I was just wondering whether that might be, because that might attract some of those people back. And ideally we would like them living in the area they so wish to live in. So I'm just sort of wondering, are we able to, if we haven't already, get a report on where social housing, because like you said, Scott, we thought we were number 7 on the list for the Ocean View culvert. Now we're up to 10 or whatever it might be. Where are we at in terms of social housing, and where is that? Is there a plan in that where the social housing is going to go, and can we at least fast forward potentially when Brighton's going, or Cole Street's going to get theirs?
Yep, thanks, Keith. And there's 2 parts to that question. First part is I was going to report under my chair's report, but I also have been engaged with staff at council and other allied social development services to come out and meet with those residents at the Brighton Caravan Park, which they did about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and they've been working with solutions. I know that haven't all met, but definitely aiming to try and meet their needs. The second part, Anna will be able to answer, because that's her new role.
Yeah, thank you. I hopefully talked to a few of those points that you've raised there, Keith. I'll start with the good one, is that the community housing team has housed 3 of the residents from that motor camp. So 3 of them are already within their houses, and we have got 6 on our wait list. So Kate, our housing manager, and her team did visit the site and talk to a number of residents and really encouraged them to put their applications in. And that's a particular interest for 2 reasons. At the moment on our current priority list, they're sitting in priority group 1, but a number of those residents have got some physical disabilities and need accessible housing, and they're in urgent need. So with the new priority system that council approved, I think 2 weeks ago now, Councillor Radish can correct me if I've got that date wrong, which will hopefully come into effect around 1 July, they'll actually jump up to being #1 priority list. So they are seen as a priority for our community housing. We obviously, as you pointed out, we don't have community housing in Brighton at the moment. So where the residents would prefer to stay in Brighton, it does make it difficult for them to access community housing that we don't have. As some of them might become more flexible in the arrangements, they might be open to different areas, they're likely to get access to housing faster. Okay, so I guess that's the first part of it. Is it's great, we've got some people housed, we've got a bunch of them on the wait list. In terms of their housing growth plans going forward, council did approve 20 million in the long-term plan over the next 10 years to build new housing. The ops team here are planning where that will be. Cole Street is one of the sites that's being looked at, and along with realistically another 5 other sites that we're looking at. And I can't tell you exactly where it is on the priority list yet, that hasn't been confirmed, but it's certainly in there in the mix. And it's about weighing up across the city where those houses are needed most and where we can get the biggest bang for the buck. We want to build as many houses as we can for as many people as we can. But I'll happily keep the board up to date on that as those plans progress.
I think it's
Oh, sorry. Can I ask? Anna, is there any? I mean, is there someone that's switched on that's able to look at transportable? I mean, there's a lot of small housing. If you go onto Facebook, you'll see lots of people, you know, tiny houses, whatever it might be, you know, lots of places that are actually modularizing, you know, places that could easily be, you know, within 6 weeks, there could be 3, 4, 6 units on there. Do you know what I mean? Like, so, you know, it's just the drainage and it's just the, you know, the sewage, and then these transportable units can go on there straight away, modularized homes, and they'll be fine. This is what I don't understand is, like, you know, how long do we, you know, do they have to be brick? Do they have to be block? There are cheaper, well, not necessarily cheaper, there's probably good value efficient homes that could go in there quite quickly, and it doesn't seem to be any kind of, well, I'm not aware of any kind of forward thinking around that. You know, I was thinking myself, geez, how can we get, you know, 6 homes on there in a hurry? And there's places that you can go to. So I'm just wondering what kind of thinking's going on. I'd really love to be not necessarily involved, but I'd like to understand more about what kind of thinking's going into that.
Yeah.
Maybe there's an opportunity, Keith, for you to catch up with Anna and talk specifically about that. I think you asked a similar question of David when he was in that role, and I think Jules contributed in terms of some of the conversations that various different people have brought to the council table about that. So would you be comfortable maybe to have a catch up one-on-one and share your thoughts and ideas? Councillor Jules, were you going to say something?
Please. Further to what I said 2 or 3 meetings ago about that same situation, I have heard from a tiny homes person to the disability group and Action Network, and I discussed that extensively with someone from Building Control to just see if there was a clear navigational path through all of the logistical difficulties of doing such a thing, and it's much more difficult than it looks, is really the short answer. However, having said that, there are caravan parks all around the place, in particular in other parts of the world, but you know, we've probably all seen them in operation here in New Zealand. And so there does seem to be, I would just say there does seem to be a general reluctance from the very top of the government in this country because I noticed that in the most recent figures I've seen, government has taken out of service about the same number of social houses that they have built. So there is there's underlying factors here that make a difference as to what can be done. And similarly, I think I was very pleased to hear Anna's answer about the council goal to build as many houses as possible, because I have seen, previous figures on previous houses that have been built at double the standard New Zealand house cost per metre. So we've gone all out to build really wonderful homes that the average New Zealander building a new home does not spend on their own home. So I think that's probably, out of line. So the thing is to try and do something efficient and cost effective, and something that, I'll be looking to discuss further with Anna. I did discuss it previously, but something that I could take it with Anna at a later date. And I think what you're suggesting, Keith, is, better bang for the buck and, more houses in the most efficient way possible. And I did note in a recent article that was in the ODT about a month ago that one of the house builders in New Zealand is building small houses, and a great many of them. Now, the cost per metre of the top 10 house builders in New Zealand is all around the same price, astonishingly enough. But they just build houses at different price points. So there are houses being built at under 200,000. Anyway, I'll leave it there.
Thanks, Councillor. I don't think the Sarah Huakimi Board will be able to solve this problem, but a solution forward is, the opportunity for Keith, Jules, and Anna to catch up. Anna, last word from you on this one.
Definitely welcome the chance to catch up in person, Keith. And I'll also bring Jill Brown along to that catch up. Jill Brown's looking after our housing action plan, which is about encouraging housing across Dunedin as a city, not just DCC's portfolio of community housing, which is a little bit more constrained. And Jill's doing some great work around uncovering tiny house and just different approaches to building and how we can encourage that in the city. So she'll welcome hearing your thoughts on that.
Thanks, Anna.
Sorry, is there any worth then, and I'm assuming, sorry, I didn't pick up on Mrs. Brown's, but is that housing New Zealand as well?
She's working in partnership. She's actually a secondment from Kāinga Order, which is previously called Housing New Zealand. So she works across both agencies.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool, because there's no point us, reinventing something that Kāinga Order have already got in plan. So yeah, it'd be good to have a conversation.
Thank you. I'll move your report. Lynn, somebody happy to second that? Thanks, Leanne. Moving along to board reports. Keep Dunedin Beautiful, Christina.
Hello. So what have we got? We've got quite a few things. Ash from Keep Dunedin Beautiful is going to get back in contact with the artist that was working with the kids at the Kura to look at putting a mural on the little breeze block building in Canberra Place, because that's had its roof fixed, so it's all ready to roll again. So he's just seeing if Johnny's still keen to do that project. So that's a work in progress. The chorus box is coming along nicely. So you've probably seen the kererus on there at the moment. And the mosaic project in the alleyway is apparently back on. So that's quite exciting. So Vianney's been in contact there to discuss possibly applying for some grants. So keep your eye out for that one. With O Week being cancelled and, well, mostly cancelled, and Tent City, we can't really promote Keep Dunedin Beautiful as much as we would have, but they're trying to still work out how we can do some cleanups in COVID settings. And the big news is that tonight is the Keep New Zealand Beautiful Awards, and Dunedin's up for Best City against Wellington. So we'll see how we go. But the ball's being held at Parliament, so we'll see if it even goes ahead. But yeah, that's all from me.
Nice, thank you, Christina. Coastal Dune Regeneration Program, there's no real update. I guess we're sitting waiting for Paul to give us a bit of an update about the plants, but also maybe when we have that workshop concept with Scott and Aidan, we can see if we can't progress that a little bit quicker. Community response plan, I met with Andy Mackenzie Everett a couple of weeks ago out at Ocean View and spoke about specific challenges that we see out in our areas, particularly the southern coastal area, particularly that focused in around that Ocean View area with landslips, sea rise, flooding, all those things, and that was really positive. He's a good man. He's come in. He's certainly he's come in pretty fresh. And then I caught up just the other day with Ben from Greater Green Island, Alana's co-worker. So what I've done is contacted Andy and said, hey, can we have a combined Greater Green Island or that community response group that covers the Green Island, Abbotsford, Concord, Fairfield, all those areas and the southern coastal area to A, just to get to know each other, B, get to know Andy and find out what the current state of play is in regards to civil defence and where we lay. And then we can have some conversations about what it is that we need to go forward, i.e. training, development, or whatever it might be. So we'll try and do that in the next, I'd like to do it definitely by the end, before the next meeting. Chain Hills Cycle Tunnel.
There's been no meetings that I've been involved with, but from what I could see in the ODT, it looks like it's pretty much a go.
It looks like it. Do you want to talk to that, Councillor Jules?
In my report.
Thank you. Delta Drive basketball court. So the plan was at the last meeting that I would prepare an application to go to the Targa Community Trust, which I pretty much have got ready. A bit of a stumbling block there, though, is that they have said if we apply under our own name, we can apply for a maximum of $1,000 because we're not an incorporated organisation. So pretty much what we need to do is think about getting an umbrella organisation that we can apply in under to be able to get us a little bit more money, because although $1,000 would be great, it wouldn't be the sort of the large amount that we really do need, aiming towards that 25,000. So if you've got some thoughts around that, I'd be real keen to have a yak offline just to brainstorm that. Anything else there, Paul, in regards to that one? Yep.
Yeah, last time we had a meeting with David, wasn't he pointing out that it's possibly on the 2-year plan for the Dunedin Parks and Recreation, and we should, yeah, withdraw the $5,000 out of our fund that we had set aside for it in our last meeting.
I missed that, mate. I don't recall that.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's all right.
Okay, well, maybe we can again flag that as one of those things that we need to react with Scott and Aidan about.
Yeah, no, that's all right.
Because you're right, at the moment we have lodged that 5,000 from our discretionary fund towards that project. Yeah. We've still got a couple of months to work out where we're at with that. So yeah, it would be good to sort of aim again before the next meeting at the end of March to have had a meeting both with those departments. School bus concerns, anything else to add there, Leanne?
No, I don't think so. I think Julian's covered it pretty well.
Great. Any other board updates that we haven't listed there, team? Very good. I'll note those reports. Somebody happy to second that? Thanks, Paul. Chairperson's report. So my apologies, I didn't welcome Anna to our meeting at the start. So welcome, Anna. Thanks for coming on board and supporting our board. It was nice to have a yak the other day. I'm looking forward to catching up with you in person in the next couple of weeks, and as soon as we can get the board to meet you in person, I think it just makes it a little bit easier. So thanks for, I guess, having your arm twisted behind your back to come and support our board. It's probably no mean feat. You'll see some communications, and I'm going to put some stuff up on the Facebook page this afternoon as well, but there was an email that was sent from Sebastian from Transportation around this proposed roundabout at Waldronville, Lancaster Lane, Vulcan and Delta Drive. I've had 2 residents this morning ring me just asking or suggesting that's not a really good idea, and rather they should put that money into actually fixing the potholes around Waldronville first. So that's probably not unfair. That project was suggested way back when Lancaster Lane came online by 2 residents that approached us, one being one of our board members and another asking if we could just improve the traffic layout there. And that at that time council were looking at investigating these alternative roundabouts. So it might be just something we need to, I guess, flag and maybe go back with recommendation back to Transportation that maybe a roundabout's not what's needed or wanted by the residents, but something would be good. Paul, do you want to talk to that at all anymore, mate?
Yeah, there's something definitely needed there, like maybe 2 giveaway signs on Delta Drive and Lancaster Lane, because there's nothing there at the moment, which is, I mean, it's not a high traffic flow area, that's cool, but when you got no traffic management there at all, they'll give way to the right rule. Some people don't always apply that, but yeah. Sure. Yes.
Brighton domain erosion. So I've flagged with Parks and Reserves again multiple times, to be fair. My significant concern, particularly around one erosion site there, which undercovers, it's over by the cricket nets, and it basically underburrows underneath the road, underneath the domain, which has got some big macrocarpus there. I've got some real concerns because I know kids play in there, that there is potential for some injury there, but most likely worse than injury. The council have said to me in writing that they don't foresee a health and safety concern. I don't sit comfortably with that, and I guess I just want to note that additional to my communications directly with them in my chairman's report, that I've got significant health and safety concerns in that specific area. Unfortunately, the staff completely disagree with me. Seaview Road, I sent an email to staff just the other day.
Sorry, Scott. Can I just pick up on that last point that you made, that they don't agree with you?
Yep.
Can we have that noted in the minutes then, that you've expressed some concerns around health and safety in that area, but council disagree?
Yep.
So I think it's worth noting in the minutes.
Yep. Thanks, Keith. Seaview Road. Sorry.
Excuse me.
Sorry. Yep.
Sorry. We can't minute that council disagree unless council in this meeting formally disagree with you.
Okay.
Can we, Leanne, note that correspondence has been received on the matter from council? Can we note?
Well, that's not what Scott's saying though. Scott's saying he's raised it with council staff, and council staff have disagreed with him that there is health and safety concerns. So it's staff, not council.
I'm happy to share the communications that I've had, maybe from staff.
Yeah, I think it'd be helpful if we saw the communications and we'd all add our 2 cents worth into that, sure, and see if there's a pathway forward. That'd be great.
It's not something that we will put in the minutes about staff. We have not got staff here to,
to represent that view.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I will express concerns. I can express your concerns in the minutes.
That's fine. No, and what I'll do is I'll share the communications that I've had with staff in regards to this matter.
Sure. Thank you.
Seaview Road. So I had a person in the community raise concerns about the Seaview Road transportation, the car parking, people using the footpath, cars coming up and down. I mean, I think everybody who's been up and down there has probably had a near miss incident. Previously, we've raised this with transportation, and we've had the reply, once the proposed subdivision happens on Scroll Road, they would revisit the safety of that road. Well, the reality is that that subdivision's on hold indefinitely. We don't know when or where that is at. But so I've asked for them to look at that again, because there's been a number of near misses there on that road. So I just flagged that with them. A Smooth Hill hearing, that's pretty well communicated there, but in May, the Targa Regional Council have set down 2 weeks of hearings for to listen to the public's views and concerns around that. So obviously at that time we'll submit as a community board. Well, we'll already submit. We'll go along and talk to those concerns. So, and I know a number of you have also done your personal submissions as well. So just raising that. We've spoken about the Brighton Caravan Park residents. Leanne and Christina went and caught up and did a site visit, Otakaya Creek Trust on site. Do you want to talk to that, ladies, at all?
Yeah, it just looks fantastic, really. They've got quite a few plants that they're propagating in a few greenhouses, and the ones that we paid for are all going in, and it's yeah, it's looking fantastic. They've got some paths getting cut in, and I'm promoting them to keep Dunedin beautiful as well for possible volunteer planting days, and also I'll put them up for an award as well.
Nice one.
Hey,
thanks for that.
Yeah, really worth visiting.
Yep, cool, thank you. Brighton Road lay-bys. So there was obviously a significant amount of work done towards the end of last year on improving, closing, tidying up a lot of those lay-bys along Tyramouth Road. So I just wanted to thank the staff for that, being incredibly responsive to residents' concerns when they raised them directly, but or through the board, in which a number of them, the initial closure has been changed. So I just wanted to acknowledge the transportation team's work in that space, and also the contractors as well. And annual plan submission, I think, Lynn, you popped this in on my behalf on this. Have we got to prepare a submission, do we?
Just flagging it to start thinking about it, because it will open for April, for early April. So you might like to start working on a submission, and we can ratify it at the next meeting so that it can be submitted when our annual plan opens. I think it's about mid-March it opens, so it kind of works in right with our next meeting.
Yeah, nice one. Okay, thanks. So what I was going to propose for the board was that we maybe do a workshop for the community plan before the next meeting, and that will kind of tidy that up as well in terms of what our priorities are. And I know that Lynn's given us guidance, which is similar to Councillor Jules, you know, just identifying kind of a few projects, sort of up 3 to 5 rather than, you know, a number, which I think is what we've aimed to do over the last 3 years under Councillor Jules' leadership. And then I've just made a note there. The Star newspaper asked me for basically what were our highlights from last year and what are our main priorities for this year. So basically I just put them in there just so there's a record as well. Anything else that we need to squeeze in under my chair's report? Very good. Thank you for that. I'll move it. Somebody happy to second it? Thanks, Keith. Councillor Jules, your report.
I'd like to start introducing myself. And I'll start with the first item of the year. For me, really was the Gala Day, and congratulations for Scott for running a phenomenal Gala Day yet again, and all those thousands of people that turned out despite COVID and despite all of the difficulties that everyone faces this year. So it was a great day and a great event. Our first, as far as councillors go, our first item on the agenda for this year was the annual plan deliberations. And so as we considered the changes, and the first, I've only got 3 key items that I think are of note to the board. There's a 6.5% rates rise, which is down slightly from what was planned. 7% was planned, and we've settled at 6.5%, although that might ease up a little bit due to the tunnels trail now being fully funded. So the council has voted to fully fund the tunnels trail and make that a priority project. So that means both tunnels open. So there's quite a lot of work involved in that, in the order of over 20 million. But that'll get the Caversham Tunnel open and the Chain Hill Tunnel open, and all of the pathways in between, including the pathway from the exit at Wingatui to get into Mosgiel, and the pathway for the entrance, or the cycleway for the entrance from the centre of town to Caversham. So I think that will be really interesting to see what difference it makes for uptake of cycling when it gets completed, because it offers good commuter pathways for people going to work. It offers fantastic recreational possibilities, even tourist attraction possibilities, especially for local tourists from around New Zealand coming to ride that pathway. But it also offers alleviation for kids on the bus. They can probably cycle to school quicker. And so that'll be interesting, and a bit of fun going through the tunnel. So it'll be interesting to see. So that's quite significant for the board, I think. And then the other one from the annual plan is the playgrounds. Is going to be, there's money voted for a playground upgrade, and there's a decision to be made in terms of submissions to the annual plan as to preferences. And there's enthusiasm for a destination playground in Dunedin, or maybe upgrading the 3 current playgrounds to destination level, or building a greenfields playground. So that question will be on the annual plan consultation document. Nextly, we had budgeting and finances, and finance and council controlled organisations. Waipori Fund is tracking well, and the council's finances are in order. It's all in line with expectations, so that's good. Thirdly, economic development. Things are painted fairly rosy. However, there has been a reduction in jobs in Dunedin of 1.5% over the last year. So that is a red flag, really, to something to be looked out for. And relative to cost of living increases, there's been no growth in wages. So I'm sure Keith will be alarmed to hear that. So that's a significant factor for Dunedin. So we're not progressing as well as we might like. And on to community and culture, the theatre options. There's still 17 million in the budget for a new theatre, but it's back to the drawing board as to where and what shape that theatre or theatres should take. And I'm really pleased to report that a round table of stakeholders has been formed, so that there's now discussions with all of the theatre and arts groups, performing arts groups, and that is yet to be widened, I believe, with music groups and also audience representatives, so that all of those stakeholders are involved in what might happen. And in the interim, the community art gallery in Princes Street will be used as for a theatre for the Fringe Festival coming up in the next few weeks. And it is my hope, my personal hope, which I mentioned at the committee meeting, that we can arrange 1 or 2 other temporary facilities to keep our theatre and performing arts and musicians in practice, in performance over the next few years, because it's going to be a fair old while before anything gets built. So I think we need something for people, and somewhere for people to perform in the interim, and that can work in a professional capacity. In other words, so that professional practitioners can actually earn money from their skills, and audiences can attend high quality productions in the interim. So that's that. And in terms of planning and development, the George Street work is underway. So there's been quite a lot of work in, starting with Phillips Street and St Andrew Street, and coming down London Street. And that's going to move onto George Street very soon, starting at the Farmers Block. So that's going to be hugely disruptive. So, and that's probably all I need to say about that. Scott's not busy on the mute button, so that's good.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. At what point did you get muted?
About the point I talked about how difficult it is for the George Street retailers coping with COVID and then coping with construction all at the same period of time, because the next 3 months for COVID are going to be really significant as it spreads through the community and we all catch it and recover because we've been vaccinated. Anyway, but in the meantime, the George Street retailers have to try and survive in their businesses. It's going to be very difficult. Personally, I don't think the two should be coincidental. I think there should be a gap between. But anyway,
Agreed.
be that as it may. My voice was muted on that topic. So the one-way system is the last thing on my agenda, because that is a fairly significant bone of contention at the moment. But the NZTA commissioned a 600-page program business case for that, which recommends that the one-way system be retained. However, other parties would like to switch to a two-way system. And so there is significant community discussion about that. And you will see, various things. If you're in a business, then you'll see a survey has come out from the Chamber of Commerce. There's been polls in the paper. There's a grey power petition. There's a whole range of things that are happening. Scott, you're muted.
Councillor Jules, Paul's got a question for you.
Certainly.
Hey Jules, how's it going?
Good.
Yeah, sorry, that was my question about that I wanted to know about, was the one ways and or the two ways. So what's actually happening there? The one way is proposed to stay, or the council's looking to change it, or
so
playing out?
To be really so Wakakatahi NZTA has commissioned a business case, what they call a program business case from Stantec, and that is sitting right on my desk here. It's 611 pages of it, and the conclusion from that was that the one-way system with some modifications, a heavy traffic bypass to take heavy traffic away from the hospital, and a few other bits and pieces to increase cycling and active transport, is the preferred option. So Wakakatahi NZTA have to make a final decision on that. So the business case has been presented. One-way system is preferred. Wakakatahi have yet to make a decision. The mayor has written to the CEO of NZTA, suggesting that now is a good time to make a bolder decision and change the face of the city. And council laws are split down the middle on that issue. So it remains to be seen what the final decision of NZTA will be. Is that clear enough?
Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor.
That is why there's a lot of discussion about it, because the final decision from NZTA has not been made, but the recommendation from the consultants, and 600 pages of it, is that they've taken, well, all the experts have said, retain the one way.
Yeah. Thanks, Councillor. Any questions for the Councillor? Very good. Are you happy to move your report, and somebody happy to second it? Thanks, John. Very good. Any specific items that we need to discuss at the next meeting, being Thursday, the 31st of March? Okay, if you have a think about that, and just flick those through if you can. I'm unsure whether I'm going to be at that meeting, but Paul's available. But what I'd like to propose is that we have a workshop for an hour beforehand, just to go through our community plan. So we'll get Lynn to just recirculate the latest one, and if you can just kind of do some work behind the scenes, and then we'll do a workshop before that. Most likely, I would imagine, looking at forecasting, that will definitely be in a Zoom kind of concept again for that meeting, I would imagine, unless something drastically changes for the better. So I think we prepare for online meeting for that one. So we don't have to choose a site, but that's Thursday, the 31st of March. So anything at all to finish up? Very good. Thank you very much, everybody, for attending, and be aware that this has been live fed to YouTube, so I'm sure there'll be hundreds of thousands of followers. And if for those people, they can sign up and follow us on Facebook, so it'll keep you board. So thanks very much, everyone.